Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. How are you? This is Enrique Sanchez, your host of Spanish United. And this morning we have a very special guest on Spanish United Radio. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yes, my name is Michael Gonzalez Matsuda. I am president of the Martial Arts History Museum in the city of Glendale, California.
Welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Enrique, for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. I originally visited the original Martial Arts Museum in Burbank, and I know that you recently opened up the one in Glendale. So
Mhm.
the listeners would like to know more about the museum, how long it's been around, and what is the purpose of the museum?
The museum has been around since 1999, so this is our 26th year. We were in the city of Glendale for city of Burbank for about 15 years in a small place. It was about a little less than 2,000 square feet. And we moved here to Glendale. We've been here a little over a year, and this is an 8,000 square feet. So it gives us a lot of more room than we had before and can do a lot more stuff. The museum is the focus is about culture. I know everybody knows about the punch and kick and all that, and that's great, and we do have that. But the one thing I really wanted to stress was the art, the music, the culture, the different things that each country had, and as it connected with the martial arts. The beauty of taiko drumming and the beauty of the artwork and all that, and how that connects with martial arts, and then how it came to America. So I think it's a nice look at history and how it affected all of us, and from Asia, not just from Asia, from other countries that came to America and then throughout the world. So that's what I want people to learn about the culture and be educated about our history.
Awesome, awesome. I think it's very important that people are educated on the history and culture, especially when it comes to exports, culture exports, because people tend to stereotype of what they see in the media instead of understanding the significance of where it comes from. And I think it's very
Hmm.
important because I think when one is educated, one is able to appreciate an art form, in the case of martial arts and what it means and signifies.
Yes, yes, exactly. Thank you. Hmm.
And I myself am into martial arts. I've been doing it since I was a kid. I recently got into not taekwondo, kung fu like 2 years ago,
Oh,
and I feel that it's
nice.
given me a lot of discipline and focus. And I feel I've been able to appreciate culture more, especially studying the history, not just the art form itself, but also the origins of it. I feel that when one educates themselves about what they're learning, they tend to appreciate and respect what they're studying.
Yes, yes, exactly. I completely agree. Completely agree. And what type of kung fu are you learning?
I am learning the Northern style.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Yeah, I took Southern style for a while. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I feel that the Northern style, it has to do more with I guess different movements and
Right.
choreography, and that's something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. Kung Fu is a great art.
Exactly. And another thing I was gonna say that myself being a community leader for the Hispanic community, I myself am in the process of trying to establish a community center because there's not too many Hispanic community centers, particularly in this area. And my focus, similar to yours, is that I want to educate people, outside the Hispanic community about the Hispanic experience. And I feel that especially with this climate, the more we learn about each other, I think it will create a better harmony because people tend to stereotype others based on ignorance instead of dealing with people. And I feel that when there's more museums or community centers that are available for people to go in and inquire, I think that's going to be a way that could break down racial barriers and prejudices.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the museum is about. creating a bridge of understanding and breaking down those barriers. Because, a lot of us study arts, Korean arts, and then it's important to know about Korea, or different arts. And the more we understand each other, the better, we'll break down those walls. So that's what we're trying to do here at the museum, open the doors to different cultures. And then that way, we can make a difference, at least make a dent, do our best to
Exactly.
make a dent.
What inspired you to start a museum of martial arts in the first place?
Well, I've been doing martial arts for a long time, since the 60s. Yeah, I know I'm an old fart. And back then, I took judo. I was only like 7, 8 years old when I took it. And we were very big part of the Japanese Community Center in Sun Valley and San Fernando, and
Hmm.
still are today. But they usually didn't accept kids back then in the 60s. But because we were part of the center, they made an exception, and me and my friend got in, and they just tossed us everywhere like rag dolls because everybody was adults. So I hated it. I hated it until one day I quit. My father required us to be there for 1 year, which 1 year to the day I quit. And then a bully in school around the fourth or fifth grade jumped me, and I flipped him in front of the whole school, and he fell on the ground. Everybody clapped. And that was the last day I was picked on. And I said, this martial arts is pretty good. So that's it. That started my journey in the martial arts. I've been doing it ever since. And one of the things I wanted to do is do history. I was writing for the magazines Black Belt and Inside Kung Fu for over 10 years at the time, and
Hmm.
they were hardly focusing on history. They want to do the most dynamic punch and this kick. And I said, what about history? History. So when I decided to make the museum, I wanted to focus on history, but I didn't know anything about a museum. So I had to go back to school for another 8 years to learn everything I could of doing a business, doing a museum, doing marketing, everything possible because I didn't want this to fail. So
Hmm.
after I went back to school, I took it on the road and as a traveling exhibit. And I said, if people are going to like it, this will be our launching pad. And if they don't like it, that's okay. I'll just keep moving forward. But everybody seemed to like it. And we went from a small little booth to 1,000 square foot exhibit traveling all around the country. And I said, okay, people like it. People are enjoying it. We'll go forward and move into a place. And that's what we did. I think it's also a labor of love because I grew up with all these guys, with the Fumio Demoras and the Bong Suhans and all these people, and I grew up with them, and I think it was important that we have something history saved because nobody was doing it. Nobody's still doing it today. And
Hmm.
I said, it's a shame that, all these people who passed away and all these things they brought to America are going to be gone forever. So I'm doing my best. I'm the only one in the world doing this. So I'm doing my best to keep that history alive. And even on my Hispanic side, El Santo, I grew up with El Santo. He was my hero. Zorro and El Santo were my heroes when I was a kid. So when I have the opportunity, and which I have now, and which I have done, I wanted to create an area for Hispanics, and talking about the man himself, El Santo. And that's what we do here. We have a whole big section that we have created, and we already started with El Santo having his picture, telling about history, and then expanding to more and more. But I think it was important, that not only we talk about Asian history, but the history from other countries as well. So I'm very thrilled to have a Hispanic section growing here at the museum.
Oh, awesome. I think it's very important, and especially that we have a very large Hispanic population. I feel that that's also another opportunity to educate people about the Hispanic experience because, as you know, Hispanics, even though we represent a large demographic, we tend to be ignored in the media and the arts and everything. So I think that's a good way to educate people about the Hispanic experience, even when it comes to, for example, the media. Like I think Zorro was one of the first Hispanic superheroes that existed, I guess, in the 20th century, as far as I know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Zorro and El Santo, and the Hispanics have a huge role. Is Robert Trias. He's the guy that created the first non-Asian commercial school in America, a Hispanic. Benny the Jet Urquidez was the one of the greatest fighters of all time, Hispanic. Graciela Casillas, Lily Rodriguez. These are all, the Perez, all these guys, gold medal winners. Arlene Limas, the first gold medal winner in the Olympics, in Taekwondo, all Hispanic. So Hispanics have made a huge contribution to martial arts. They just don't know it, but they have. They have made a huge contribution. And then when you see their picture here, it gives you hope. It gives you say, I can do that too. If they did that, I can be a champion. I can be a legend. I can make a difference.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we do in Spanish United is that we try to encourage people in believing in themselves, having confidence. We try to encourage them in not only in academics, but also in the arts and sports. Because
Hmm.
I feel that, again, there is a lack of encouragement within the Hispanic community, and we are one of the few grassroots organizations that we want to be a beacon of hope to many in the community. And we started from a small group of 10 people, and we've grown to over 1,000 people with 5 chapters in different states. The main one here is in California. And the whole point is to encourage positivity and at the same time to encourage, particularly the youth, that they don't have to take a dark path in order to be something in life. So I think it's very important because that in our culture, we thrive on being praised, being appreciated because it's part of our culture. So I feel that if there's more positive role models, or at least, we are seen as people that we can do more than just being, disposable workers. I think that could change a lot of the perspective of how we view ourselves.
Yeah, I agree completely. Completely.
And another thing I was going to ask, aside from the Glendale Museum, do you plan to expand in different cities as well, or just having these two locations here in the state?
Well, we had the one. We moved from Burbank to here in Glendale. This will be the only one. I can tell
Oh,
you
okay.
for sure. It is
Okay.
so much work. It's so much work, and it's hard to get a lot of people on board. And I think in time we'll get a lot of people on board. But it is so much work. I think this will be it. This will be
I
it.
can imagine. So originally, you only had the one in Burbank, and then you closed, and then you moved to Fish. Okay, I get it now. I
Yeah.
thought you had opened another location. That's what I misunderstood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're very glad to be here in Glendale. Having this bigger space has allowed us to do a lot more, but it is my hope that we will move from this space to a much larger location that we can do a lot more stuff for the community. As a museum, we don't just have artifacts. We do a lot of humanitarian work. We do a lot of stuff for Alzheimer's and people with dementia. We do a lot of tour groups for people who are mentally challenged. We do a lot, we do classes for CPR and health classes and different things like that. So I want to continue to expand on that. And that way we can have, people come in and learn about diabetes and learn about different things for their health and, being healthy and all that. So I want the museum to eventually have all these wonderful resources that people can come to the museum and learn this and learn that and become better people as a result.
Exactly. And one of the things that I've learned in martial arts is that aside of the philosophy of you're to only use combat for defense, for defending people, at the same time, it also helps you to become a better person. It helps you to serve others. That it's not about you, but it's about the wider community. I think that is a concept that is very important to teach to others.
Yes, exactly, exactly. People say, "Oh, the museum martial arts is about violence." And I said, "No, it's not. It may look like it, but when you start doing it, you start understanding the discipline. You start being appreciative of others. The goal is to never have to use it in your entire life, but to become a better person from it. When we play sports, we try to become better at who we are and with our bodies and you know have more goal-oriented frames of mind. And that's what the martial arts does. It helps us, get to the next belt or help us in school by passing the test or studying a little harder. So we do martial arts a little stronger. We learn it, forms or learn fighting or learn this. And we just transition that to work and say, hey, I can be a better, a student and I can pass that test. I can study harder. I have more discipline. So you get all that wonderful stuff from the martial arts. It's not about violence. It's about, becoming a better person and setting goals and having more discipline and having honor and respect. That's all a big part of it. The punch and kick is just a little part of that.
Of course, of course. And that's what I was telling my mom that martial arts may seem that it's about, violence or harming people, but in reality is the opposite. Like what you were mentioning, the whole point of martial arts is not to start a fight, but to get away from a fight as much as possible. What's most important that you use your words. You could use your
Yeah.
words to diffuse a conflict in a situation. And I remember an episode of the Power Rangers many years ago. Well, it wasn't an episode, it was like a PSA where the character Jason was he had some type of an issue with something, and Trini, the Yellow Ranger, was explaining to the other student that even though this guy had an issue with Jason, Jason could have just knocked him out with just one kick, but he kept avoiding to the point where the guy decided, what am I doing? Why am I, picking a fight with him? And then the whole moral to the story was that you could create a friend out of an enemy.
Yes, yes. Exactly, exactly.
So I think that's something that, it really impacted me as a child. Another thing I was going to ask, that you were mentioning that you also are involved in doing community work.
hmm
Does the museum also do like workshops, for example, for low income students that are interested in martial arts or wanting to know the history of martial arts?
That is the goal. That is the goal. We do a lot of stuff right now, working with people with dementia and Alzheimer's and mentally challenged. They come in on a regular basis, and we're happy to do that. And it is my goal to expand to do with low income and other things. We had a time where we gathered uniforms for people who could not afford them for low income, and we had a time when we distributed the uniforms to them and we're happy to do that again later on in the future. But we're trying everything we can. We had once planned. Someone has told us about getting a large amount of funds, and we were planned a real big thing, and having a restaurant and having all that. And as part of it didn't come through, but as part of that, we were going to make lunches at the restaurant and have someone distribute it to low income areas or people who couldn't afford it. And that was going to be part of the program. And I'm hoping in the future that will be part of the program if we get support behind us.
Hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that people can do. There really is. You have these big stars that make a lot of money, which is great. I applaud them for doing all that. But you can do a lot of good with that money. You can do a lot great things for the community by reaching out and doing wonderful things out there. And I think as a museum, I'm hoping it will expand. I'm hoping it will, get some big funding behind it so we can do a lot more humanitarian stuff. And I think that that's really important to be a part of the community.
Well, absolutely, because when one gives back, one has a moral obligation to be for the community, I remember when I did an interview a couple of years ago in relation to Hispanic poverty. I had mentioned that a lot of Hispanics that become wealthy, they become, ultra millionaires, and this is just my observations. Not everybody, but from what I've
Hmm.
noticed is that when many Hispanics become celebrities, become wealthy, like instead of giving back, they just forget about where they come from. And I feel that's
Yeah.
something that needs to change because, the more of the wealthy Hispanics that give back to the community, they could actually transform communities and actually make it better.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. People find it hard to give back sometimes. In the martial arts community, we have that. We have big stars who have made wonderful careers, and we applaud them for making wonderful careers and sacrificing so much to make all these movies. And I am very glad for them. But sometimes a lot of them forget where they come from and say, "Hey, I can do a little bit more by helping the community, by helping the museum or helping us different efforts to give back and support where they came from, and I think that would be good, especially, it'd be nice to have classes here or send people certified that can go out and teach low-income areas or things like that. That'd be a nice outreach.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Like I said, I'm in the same boat as you are. I don't have like an established community center, but I'm in the process of possibly getting something for lease or for something because I feel that that's a good way to do outreach. Like even with our limited resources, like I've been able to do a lot of outreach, like with toy drives,
Hmm.
providing food, water, and again, it's all by donation base. I don't have sponsors, but again, that all has to do with building building relationships with people, and eventually something, will pop up. Well, anyway, Michael, we come to the end of our time. I want to tell you thank you so much for being on the show, and for all the listeners on Spanish United, we are on all social media platforms. We are on Spanish United Facebook, Twitter, now known as X, Instagram, YouTube. We are a nonprofit organization. Anything that anyone contributes will be used to help someone in the community, and everything's tax deductible. As soon as I finish with this recording, I'll send it to you, and we'll definitely keep in touch. Thank you so much for being on the show, Michael.
Thank you so much, Enrique.
Have yourself a wonderful day.
You too.